What's up everyone? Welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. I am Shade13 Lord. Today we're going to do something a little different. We had a patch notes drop and damn, they're adding a lot of stuff. So really I wanted to take the time to look over this, go over things, really look into what it means, what things might change. Let's start off with one of the easy parts. So what they're adding in is a reserve vault. So currently you have your regular kind of storage, and then you have a champion vault. So the champion vault can be some extra storage. You can use the units who are kept in here, things like that. What they're adding in is what they're calling a reserve vault, and then this is going to turn into the master vault. So you'll still have this, you still can keep units in here, but you'll have a reserve vault on top of it. Now the thing about the reserve vault is going to be that champions in there can't be geared. So your now master vault, you'll be able to keep your extra geared champions rather than having to keep them all out here. But the reserve vault is going to be for anyone extra who you're not actively using it anyway. One of the biggest thing is going to be, it's a spot for you to keep the dupe point of faction guardians. So if you have units you have as faction guardians and you're not using them for anything, you can keep them in the reserve vault because they're not geared, and then it frees up more space inside of this, which is what will become the master vault. Really great quality of life addition. It is going to kind of work the same way as all the others, where it's going to have X space and you can pay silver or gems to increase that space up to a maximum of 300. But really what I think is going to matter is it's going to be a good spot to keep all of this, all of your duplicates for reserve, all of your duplicates for faction guardians can now be saved in the reserve vault so that they aren't taking up the space in your active storage. So the next thing that's getting reworked is Hex. Hex has kind of been a joke for a while. It hasn't been really effective in a lot of ways. It's not often used, and a lot of the time champions were coming out with Hex and it was kind of like, okay, but Hex isn't good, it's not meta. Actually, possibly going to change. So what they're doing to Hex is changing it so that if a unit has Hex on them, they will receive additional damage when their allies take damage. The way this will work is, say you have a unit who has the Hex debuff on them, and their ally gets hit with a single target attack. The unit who has the Hex debuff will take 10% of the amount that the actual targeted unit took. The big thing about this is that will ignore defense. The other part to note with it is that doesn't apply for your dot damage. Things like poison, HP burn, bombs, reflect damage. Anything like that isn't going to trigger Hex. It has to be actual active abilities, used abilities. Some of that damage is going to be also additionally applied to the units under Hex. That is going to be 10% for a single target attack, or 2% for AoEs, and that does stack on top of the AoE damage they would already be taking. So it's not like 2% of the damage they take ignores defense. No, this is an additional 2% on AoEs that will ignore defense. What this really does is it actually changes the way that some things will function. I could see this being really good with Hydra. Say you get Hex on all of the heads in Hydra. Well, now even if you don't get to even if you don't get to hit the unit you want, because of the redirect attack that it has at times, where it will force you to attack a different target, you would still get the Hex damage on all the other heads that had Hex. So you're getting a lot of extra benefit out of this. You could also see this start playing in on places like Arena. You get Hex on like a really big tank, and then you can use your nuker to nuke out, say, a squishy who's going to do a lot of damage back to you, so like their nuker, for instance, 10% of the damage you deal to that nuker is going to be applied to, again, the tank that you have Hex on, and it's going to ignore that tank's defense. So you can get a lot of extra damage out this pretty quickly. It actually scales almost as well as HP burn, because HP burn is 3% of the champion's max HP. The issue is you can only have one stack of it. Now, I haven't seen it in here. I'm going to assume it's going to work the same. You can only have one stack of Hex. It's not like a thing that we can just keep stacking up like poison. You can't. It would be ridiculous if we could have multiple instances of Hex. But it still is a lot of extra damage that you're just putting out for what your normal attacks are already doing. So I see this as nothing but a benefit, and I think there's actually a good chance. I don't know that it'll break meta up in plat games, but I think in mid tiers you can make some really good use out of Hex. So continuing on, like I said, this is actually a big patch, drops a lot of things. Kale is getting a skin. Good for him. I'm not one that really cares on the skins, but it's cool that they're rolling them out, and I really like that with the Trunda one, for instance. It's just we can earn those fragments by things. I'm kind of against the skins that you just have to pay for, but at the same time, they're just skins. So I'm not opposed to them, because if people want to spend money for the cosmetics, go for it. That's perfect. That works, no problem. Alright, so we are getting new units. There's actually a lot of them that are being dropped, and I think they did a really good job of choosing different factions and giving them strong legendaries, new legendaries, in areas they were missing. So, the first one, as you can see here, is Walking Tomb Dreng. Spirit Affinity. He's an HP scaler, part of the Knights Revenant faction. This is the one that is dropping for the Fragment event that starts on July 7th. So, if you weren't aware, July 7th, we're starting a Fragment event for a champions. We're starting a Fragment event for a legendary champion. That is going to be the Walking Tomb. He seems really solid. He's got HP burn. He really is this kind of HP tank who just helps put HP burn out there. A lot of this patch is actually focusing on either adding HP burn into the new units, so getting more units out there with HP burn, or making those who have it better and really adjusting the way it gets applied. So as you can see, I'm not going to go through all these. I highly recommend Hell Hades videos or Ash. Both of them make amazing videos and really can have some where they do breakdowns on these new champions. But like I said, I'm just going to quick glance through them. I really wanted to bring up what is happening in this balance patch. So we're getting the Walking Tomb Dreng. So we're getting the Walking Tomb Dreng. Like I said, HP scaling, applies HP burn. The interesting thing here, I find, so he has this equalize the HP of all allies, then attacks an enemy. But it's an equalize, not in the sense of an HP balance like you would usually see, but it's actually, it levels all allies. Their HP level will be brought up to the level of the ally with the highest HP. So the way this is worded makes me think that it runs off percentages. So say Walking Tomb is your one with the most HP at the point where he uses his skill, and he has 95% of his health. If he has 60, let's do 50,000. If he has 50,000 health, but he has lost 5,000, so he's sitting at 45,000 health, he wouldn't bring everyone else up to 45,000, but he'd bring them up to that percentage that he is at. So it would be the percentage of whatever all the other units' HP is, which is still really good. That can be amazing in some situations. It's also some points. The attack will ignore the defense, or it's a 30% chance. It's also the attack will ignore 30% of the defense if the target's HP is equal to or lower than Walking Tombs. It's just got some extra things built in there. Not bad. Like I said, the HP balance is a really strong point of that. It actually will drop down to a 4-turn cooldown ability too, which could get really ridiculous. And then he's got a passive that's really interesting. So his passive reflects 30% of the damage he receives back to the attacker if he had more than 50% of his health. If he has less than 50% of his health, he just deals 30% more damage. That's interesting. I like, because he kind of switches the way he functions here. That can make for some really interesting plays you can do, where he gets the reflect damage when he's real tanky, but when he starts getting low, he just starts dishing out more damage. He might come in a clutch point to save some teams. And then he's got a 30% HP leader skill in all battles. That is really good because it is all battles. Now, it's generally the point you're not going to be using HP bonuses often. Like the HP lead just isn't as strong as some others can really be. But 30% is a lot, especially if you mix this in with some real HP scalers. You put him on an arena defense team with Magnar. He's going to keep that HP balance, bringing Magnar back up. He's going to be dishing out that HP burn for Magnar to proc his Fan the Flames off of, and just debuff spread that HP burn everywhere. And then he just gives 30% more base HP, which is what Magnar scales off of to be an AoE nuker. So this pairing can be really strong, and there's others just like it that'll kind of really build in. Then we got Ragash. Ragash is part of the Skinwalkers. Finally, Skinwalkers getting what looks like a very decent legendary. Not saying they didn't have any. Think they just needed more. Skinwalkers have been kind of left behind for a while there. Kind of forgotten, so good to see them get a new one. Really, this is defense scaler, real tanky. This dude looks like he's just going to be the tank. Same sort of thing. Ally defense in all battles, 30% for a leader skill. He's got passive that applies perfect veil. He applies perfect veil to the ally with the highest attack. So he is keeping your nuker hidden. Makes it so they can't be targeted directly and take less damage. He inflicts 20% more damage on targets whose defense is lower than his own. As a defense scaler, this can get really big. If you start hitting, like, not only can he with this take down some big HP tanks or even other defense tanks, you will see him dish out some damage against attack scalers, in my opinion. Like, I have no access to the test server, so I can't try any of this yet, but Ragash seems like he is going to be super tank, who also you start seeing really do some nukes to some people. Multiple abilities, dropping strengthen, increase speed, perfect veil. That is stacked. He's got decreased defense, mixed with a stun on the same ability, and increased defense on his A1. Alright, moving forward, Truath. The Dark Elf legendary we're getting. It's an HP scaler. Again, it's kind of just across the board. I'm not opposed to any of these new legendaries. They actually look really interesting. And I like that they aren't just real basic, here's an ability, this is what they do. Like, it's not just all their abilities have debuffs or buffs and that's what's happening. No, they all have different interesting things going on. And I really see a few points of potential for all of them. I might do a video in the future where we really break down each of them and kind of talk about where you could use them. But right now, we're doing a fast just kind of overview. Shemnath is a new Knight's Revenant, the attack scaler out of this group of legendaries. Really, this is the ability. This seems really interesting. This has some potential. I'm interested in. We'll come back to this at another point. But attacks all enemies twice. The first hit will strip, and the second will ignore defense if they have no active buffs, which you just stripped. I think this is huge because I think a big point of what happens, especially in some arena, is really you need to get some of those units who have AoE strips, because if you run into a defense team, they will just keep buffing themselves for days, and you can just lose to that. So getting more AoE strippers out there, in my opinion, great. Akira is the new dwarf legendary. Is a defense scaler. Again, brings some interesting things. Whenever an ally is attacked while under ally protection, places a 50% decrease attack on the attacker. That can be interesting. You can do some fun things with that. Also, obviously, to make the abilities kind of pair together, has a chance to give ally protection, as well as the increased defense buff, really keeping people alive. Lots of potential there. Demon spawns are getting a new attack scaler. Again, it's all of these units have interesting things. I will break down some more later if people are interested in that. Dwarves are actually getting a second defense scaling. So they are getting 2 new legendaries, both of them defense scalers. One's spirit affinity, one's magic affinity. I like what they both do though, and they're different enough that it doesn't feel bad getting 2 of them. And then Lizardmen are getting one. Lizardmen getting a good support legendary. Now, they do have some very strong supports in my opinion already, but to get a legendary support, Lizardmen were really lacking in kind of having something there, so I think this is great. Also, a 19% in all battle leader skill is wonderful. That is a great route to go. I could see times you run, if the rest of the champion works out, that it is a very solid support. Like it looks like it will be. Having that 19% leader skill everywhere could make this a great leader. This passive, though, fills this champion's turn meter by 5% every time a debuff on an enemy is removed, transferred, or expires. This can get interesting because you actually could create some interesting loops of getting the debuffs out and then trying to cycle into Nikmo's turns. There's a lot of... I see a lot of potential here, and I think it could be a lot of fun to play with some of these new ones. Again, I don't see any of these new legendaries as weak. I really like where they're going. So then we got the rebalances. We did talk about these previously in another video, so I'm gonna go real fast through them. Lugan got a 1-turn cooldown on the bodyguard ability. That's solid. I think it's good. 5 turns too much. I believe that will go down to 3 turns when booked. Don't quote me on it. I just believe that's the way. And then they finally fixed Lugan and the insane nonsense scaling he had, because if you didn't know, Lugan is a HP scaling champion. However, Mark of Silence, his AoE attack that is meant to do damage, was attack scaling. So you needed to build him HP, but it wasn't going to add to his damage, so he also needed health. They fixed that. Mark of Silence now does damage based on HP. He's a true HP scaler, looking good. Still don't think he's going to be extremely useful. I don't think we'll see him hit meta. I don't see this changing enough. His kit doesn't have this amazing little thing to it that a lot of these others have, but it does make him a lot better, and he finally makes sense. Jingwan. So they adjusted the way his second and third ability work, or I'm sorry, his A2 and his passive work. I think those are both really good changes. I like the way they went. That A1 though, his auto attack, in certain circumstances, that can be insane. So what they did is, before Xingwan's A1 was attack one enemy, and he would transfer a random debuff he had to the target. That is now changed. When he attacks an enemy, he transfers all debuffs that he has to the target. You ever wanted to see a spider die to its own poison? Like, there's... That A1 leads to some very interesting things that I think people could pull off some really insane records in certain dungeons that they weren't at before. We might see speed teams for Spider, for some Doom Tower floors, using Xingwan. I think that was a good change. Not sure it's strong enough to make him start appearing everywhere, but I think there's some cool things you can do with him now. I would be very excited to try it. Cupidus. Cupidus has a simple change, same as a lot of these. They switched it so that a lot of the units who have HP burn is can more effectively apply that. So his Flames of Passion is switching from 3 random attacks to attacks all enemies. That is good. That was probably one of the weaker points in his kit, in my opinion. But the big thing is the HP scale, or the HP burn is switching from 50% that scales to 75 into 75% that scales to 100%. Additionally, the move just had its damage increased. Good. That is great change on Cupidus. I think we will see Cupidus getting used in a number of places a little more. Don't know if he'll break through Arena yet. Maybe the pairing with Venus, however, will, because of his passive. Passive, when paired with Venus, used to just cause a increase of 25% more damage to targets under debuffs. That is Scratch. When paired with Venus, he will just always do flat 25% more damage now. Additionally, every time he is hit, he will counterattack. If you remember, Cupidus A1, AoE. So he is AoE counterattacking every time he gets attacked. That could be real good. Doing so with the 25% more damage. Constantine. It's a good change. It helps him out. It makes him paired with Vlad better. I don't think it's good enough to see something huge going on here. Basically what happens is his old passive of if he kills undead, demon spawn, or night revenants, they can't be revived when he's paired with Vlad. That's changing. That is now just base all the time. When he is paired with Vlad, any enemy he kills can't be revived. It's a good change. I don't think it makes Constantine strong enough that we'll see him often. Lord Shazar. The other thing they buffed in this patch is bombs. Lord Shazar is getting a buff on it. The damage of the bombs is being increased. Alright, then coming back to Venus, as Cupidus was on the list, Venus is on the list. Venus is here, got the same sort of buff. The skill she had that was an AoE attack everyone, with a 50% chance of applying HP burn scaling to 75 has been changed so that it is a 75% scaling to 100. That does it for this patch. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. I will have another I'll have another free-to-play video out if you follow that shortly, and I will see you guys again soon.